What is prayer? Here's my definition. Prayer is intentionally conveying a message to God. Now, language is frustrating because of how unclear it is almost all the time when it comes to important matters. So you should ask, why in the world do you define prayer as intentionally conveying a message to God? Why don't you just say, prayer is talking to God? What's this conveying a message intentionally? What's the deal? Just use real, ordinary language. Like prayer is talking to God. And here's the first reason why I tried that and rejected it. Because it says in Romans 8:26, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we don't know how to pray as we ought, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. Now I take that to mean, not that He's out there somewhere groaning in heaven, but that He's right here when I'm speechless and don't know what to say. And these groanings are arising from the Spirit with meaning and no words. So I chose conveying a message, which you can do with wordless groanings. So there's my first reason for groping for some language that didn't seem quite normal at first. Here's the second question you should ask me. Why don't you just say it's then communicating with God? That'd be a little less awkward than intentionally conveying a message. Why don't you just say prayer is communicating with God? And here's the reason I tried that and rejected it. Because it sounds, when you say that, like you mean you're communicating that way and He's communicating this way, and that's prayer. And that's not prayer. The Bible never calls God's communication to us prayer. Never. And we get ourselves into a big muddle when we concoct phrases to that effect. Like His talking to us is a kind of prayer. It isn't. And so I'm going to avoid communicating with, because it's got the ambiguity about it. Like this communication is going both ways, and both ways constitute prayer. One way constitutes prayer. The other we call revelation or illumination. We don't call it God prays. Or we are praying when God's talking. Prayer is a conveying of a message to God. Now, why the word intentional? Prayer is the intentional conveying of a message to God from my heart. Why do you use the word intentional? Well, for this reason. People are conveying the messages to God all day long that they don't mean to. Messages like, God is not important to me. Or God is irrelevant to this situation, or God does not exist. These are all messages people are sending to God all day long. By the way they act, the way they talk, what they do and don't do. These messages are going up to heaven all day. You're not important. You're not important. You're not important. That's not prayer. Unless they mean it. And they don't mean it. They're not thinking. Because He doesn't exist and He's not important. They don't want to talk to Him. And we don't call that unintentional message giving to God, which we can sometimes discern, and God always discerns prayer. So, I chose the words. They may be better. You can perhaps improve on it. Prayer is intentionally conveying a message to God.